So Blake Lively files to dismiss $400 million lawsuit, calling it an abuse of the legal system.
These cars aren't moving. Ready? Thanks, Captain.
In an unexpected development during a well-known court case, Blake Lively was clearly agitated by a seasoned attorney's sharp comments in court. The courtroom mood changed noticeably when the lawyer's scathing remarks not only called into question her credibility, but also seemed to touch on delicate subjects, according to witnesses, who described the incident as a drastic departure from her typical poise. Observers observed that Lively, who usually keeps a composed public persona, appeared unable to control her annoyance as the conversation became more heated.
And Reynolds also filed to dismiss the lawsuit, but what does it mean? So this is specifically referring to Justin Baldoni's lawsuit against them. They want the judge to dismiss Baldoni's lawsuit against them, like saying, hey judge, we don't deserve to be sued. Can you please just get him away from us? Her publicist Leslie Sloan and the New York Times have also filed motions to dismiss, but why is this so important right now? Because the judge just settled the protective order dispute, which means the next phase is to move into discovery, which means digging up the text messages, digging up the emails, deposing people, Taylor Swift. And along with a motion to dismiss, we have Leslie Sloan and the New York Times, and presumably next will be Blake and Ryan, are filing a motion to stay discovery, meaning they don't want to move into discovery just yet until the judge decides on all of their motions.
Before the session, there had been reports circulating about the underlying tensions, but few had expected such a public exhibition. With every detail examined, the incident has since generated discussions among legal experts and fans alike, raising questions about whether the outburst was a premeditated response or a true loss of composure. It has also become a point of reference in conversations regarding the relationship between celebrity and the demands of courtroom decorum.
Ryan Reynolds doesn't think it's fun anymore and he wants out. Hi, my name is Nigel Burns. I'm a trial lawyer in Southern California. That's right. Ryan Reynolds has asked a judge to dismiss him from the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively lawsuit, saying that there are no legal grounds for any claim against him, and basically the claim against him by Baldoni amounts to hurt feelings. Now, many people would say all of this lawsuit or lawsuits is about hurt feelings and not much more. But that's why Ryan is wanting to get out of the party now and saying no more fun and games for him with this.
The lawsuit started off as any other, with both sides carefully outlining their positions. Blake Lively, who was representing her interests in a case that had received a lot of public attention, seemed focused and composed at first, but as the session progressed, the opposing attorney's approach changed dramatically. His opening remarks were measured, but his tone alluded to more serious criticisms that resonated with the heated atmosphere of the courtroom.
It does raise in my mind the question of, would that be enough to overcome the fair reporting privilege? It might be.
Yeah, and I think when we had talked with Zach Peter several weeks back, the question had come up, and I think Zach was, in tune to this. He says, why was this CRD complaint even filed? And then they go to New York, the Southern District of New York, and file a lawsuit up there. Your comment at the time was what?
It seems like they filed in California because we have a very liberal statute that gives you the litigation privilege. So now Lively's covered under the litigation privilege. And then you go to New York because you can report it under the fair reporting.
According to several accounts, his investigation was straightforward and uncompromising, purposefully highlighting discrepancies in Lively's testimony and casting doubt on the accuracy of her claims. As he went along, his remarks became more pointed, implying not only professional failings but also personal transgressions that had no place in the court file.
They're not smart, Stu. If they were smart, they would have settled. They're not smart.
And it's $400 million. And Ryan Reynolds has that money from the sale of
what? It's funny because Justin Baldoni sued him for just over what they're worth.
Really? Oh, God, that attorney scares the shit out of me, Brian.
Yeah.
After me, oh my
and
God.
They're like, usually a judge, especially, and attorneys would be like, do not play this out in the press. And Baldoni's attorney is like, we're playing this out in the press. You're going to insinuate about us? We're just going to show the text.
Yeah. No, he's dead right, because you know what? The court of public opinion is really what matters in Hollywood. It just does.
Totally.
it doesn't matter about money, like giving them 50 million, 60 million. It's just reputation. And he was so smart in doing that website, showing all the text. And I'm sorry, like when people say you've done something wrong or like whatever, I've been there. It's like, great, show me the text.
Yeah.
Show me what I did. Show me the screenshot. There's none because it never happened. Exactly. She can't show.
The lawyer, who appeared to be aware of every nuance, delivered a particularly scathing remark at this point that not only criticized Lively's legal strategy, but also made reference to previous controversies. Initially, observers noticed that Lively's reactions were subtle, including a slight jaw tightening and a brief pause before responding, but these small signs quickly turned into a display of mounting irrit. Her hands, which were normally composed on the table, began to gesture emphatically as if to emphasize the strength of her rebuttal. Witnesses characterized the incident as a tipping point, where she became clearly uneasy due to the lawyer's cumulative pressure.
Maya Schachter. She is a very experienced intimacy coordinator who did not work on It Ends With Us, but she brings a lot of first-hand knowledge and wisdom. And she said something that really got me thinking and resonated. After reading text messages between them that they each included in their respective lawsuits, this intimacy coordinator says, quote, "From reading their text messages, I do sense that at one point there was genuine affection between them and what felt like a friendship. In my experience, when an actor says, I don't need to meet the intimacy coordinator until we're shooting, as much as it hinders my process, it does typically indicate that they trust their scene partner. And those texts made me think that at one point, she did feel a lot of trust with him. And you know what? I actually agree with her."
While the lawyer maintained a clinical, almost dispassionate delivery, his words carried weight that profoundly affected everyone in attendance. In the minutes that followed, the courtroom transformed into a stage for a dramatic interplay of emotions and legal rhetoric. Lively's defense, which had been painstakingly prepared and loaded with documented evidence, started to fall apart under the constant pressure of these personal. When the conversation heated up, Lively's carefully composed responses began to falter as the lawyer's strategy shifted from winning the case to discrediting the celebrity's story entirely. Her measured and concise responses became a heated rebuttal that reverberated throughout the quiet room.
Delay tactic. It seems like they don't want to move into discovery, probably because discovery is going to get very messy. Again, the text messages, the emails, we're going to get into all the records, we're going to get into the depositions. Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, Bradley Cooper. You know for a fact, Brian Friedman is coming for all of them in the depositions. Now, why might Khaleesi and her dragons want to delay the discovery process? One theory is that we have another simple favor. The official premiere is coming out soon, so we may not want to taint that any further, right? Oh, but there's a bigger reason we may want to delay this process. This very, very messy process. Bigger than another simple favor, Ryan Reynolds' company is about to go public. Sounds like a very lucrative deal. Now, we wouldn't want to hurt any chances of a really big sale by having messy details about this messy lawsuit.
Those acquainted with Lively's audience persona noted that this was different from her usual responses at interviews and media events. Rather than giving the well-rehearsed, polished responses for which she was known, she came across as raw and unguarded, allowing her frustration to show. Some legal analysts suggested that the lawyer's strategy was to elicit a reaction that could later be portrayed as evidence of emotional instability, weakening her position. Meanwhile, the public, who were watching from various media outlets, were quick to share their interpretations of the incident on social media platforms, fostering a narrative that combined personal vendetta with legal criticism.
Okay, am I the only person with their hands raised? Are you guys just here to plagiarize because you know I went through every line like a complete psycho? That's perfectly fine. I just want you guys to know rather, that if you're here because you think there's some bombshell in here, as her lawyers were alluding to, oh, wait until everybody sees everything, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because if clickbait was an amendment, this is it. Okay, I cannot believe it. And there's so much more going on here. Now we really see the target of everything, I think, really the linchpin for her lawsuit, the person that she went after. We have to discuss Isabella Ferrer, all that coming up.
At this point in the session, the lawyer's line of questioning became more intense and concentrated on Lively's public remarks and career choices that had previously been deemed inappropriate in a courtroom. His language suggested that Lively's celebrity status may have influenced her judgment, a statement that offended both her supporters and legal team. At one point, the discussion went into areas that many felt were outside the purview of the case, and some people interpreted the lawyer's relentless pursuit of every apparent contradiction as a conscious effort to damage her reputation in a way that went beyond accepted legal procedure.
It was Ryan who had called this shot, that it was very obvious now that we know his brand of narcissism. I feel like we all deserve like PhDs in psychology by the end of this. And since we were able to connect the way his teacher said that he believes he can act his way out of anything and make people fall in love with him, I said yesterday on the show, 100% Ryan was the one who put this line in here. Not SNL, not Tina Fey, not Blake Lively, but Ryan. And sure enough, some amazing mommy sleuth sends me a link yesterday, which you guys don't forget. She says, check out this broadcast on an Australian radio show called Fifi, Fev, and Nick for Breakfast, literally a Melbourne, Australia station, where they had a guy who's been with SNL for like 25 years. His name is Cue Card Wally. He literally holds the cue cards for SNL. And he was just opening up with them in a friendly conversation about how exciting hosting that 50th anniversary was. And at the very end of the conversation, Cue Card Wally gets asked about that line. Ryan Reynolds jumping up and making a joke about the Justin Baldoni situation. And take a listen to what Cue Card Wally had to say.
Now, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have been in the news a lot, and Ryan Reynolds, we want to know, was that an improv or was it scripted, his little piece he did?
That was actually, he had a different line in rehearsal, and he pitched that to replace it. So that was his idea to do it.
It was Ryan's idea.
Lively's responses, which were laced with legal citations and references to documented evidence, became more pointed as she argued that the questioning was not only irrelevant, but also an attack on her character, drawing attention away from the substantive legal issues at hand. However, as the minutes passed, her tone became increasingly irritated, in stark contrast to her previously composed demeanor. Her body language, which had previously been controlled, began to reveal the stress of the moment when eyewitnesses noticed that her eyes flashed with intensity and her gestures became more forceful, highlighting the emotional toll of the relentless grilling.
We have these insanely wealthy humans that are just having a pillow fight, and we already have a backlog in the court system. And now they have clogged up 3 different areas of law and people that actually have to go to work for a living. And there's other cases that are behind them that are legitimate. And this is just silliness. This is high-powered, high-priced lawyer doing legal gymnastics. At the end of it, there's going to be nothing. Nothing's going to happen. There's not even, it's going to be dismissed everywhere. And that's it. And I enjoy talking about it because I like the legal gymnastics that the lawyers have done, but it's all nonsense. All of it. And you can get mad at me for saying that because this guy said this or this girl said this. When it all comes to a head at the end, everybody knew what they were doing, and everybody is trying to make themselves look good, and they want to make more money because they're, entitled Hollywood people.
Well,
that's my
Courtroom later, mates characterized the incident as out of character for the star, whose public appearances were usually distinguished by grace. The lawyer's tactic clearly worked under pressure, eliciting a response that many saw as a major break from the customary courtroom etiquette. Despite being uncommon, such displays can have significant ramifications in high-stakes litigation involving public figures, according to legal experts talking about the incident after the session. They underlined that the dynamics of celebrity trials frequently involve a play between public perception and legal strategy, with every gesture and word being closely examined.
Rogan is blasting Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and I just kind of found this to be quite funny. I found it funny. He said that they effed up when he was on his podcast because it came up about the whole It Ends With Us drama and the legal saga. And I feel like more and more people are starting to, like, you know, come to the point where they're realizing like Lively very clearly is not telling the truth. I think when I was talking it through yesterday with Daniel Feruzin, it kind of became abundantly clear because I was like, what smoking gun could she possibly have? She's trying to argue 47.1, and like, sure, that's a strong argument, but again, it goes down to, you know, a matter of fact that will have to be determined by the jury, not a judge. The very same sentiment that was echoed by Harvey Levin when he was on TMZ, and he's like, these are matters of, you know, these are questions of fact, and questions of fact are for the jury, not for the coconut tree. Now,
the lawyer's final, cutting comment as the session came to an end seemed to wrap up the story for the day. In his summary, he summarized the things that had shocked Lively and framed her outburst as a sign of more serious problems. His final remarks were delivered with a sense of closure, making it clear that he intended to portray her as not just a well-known defendant, but also as someone whose personal and professional lives were entangled in a web of contradictions. The judge, acting in decorum, called for order and reminded everyone in attendance that it was crucial to concentrate on the case's legal merits rather than one's feelings, but the harm had already been done. While the lawyer's comments were within the parameters of legal strategy, the subsequent response from Lively highlighted the particular difficulties celebrities face when their private and public lives collide. The incident had been captured on camera, dissected, and circulated among legal circles and the public alike. In the aftermath, media analysts and legal commentators have been busy peeling back the layers of the incident. Collide in a court of law. The episode has spurred debates regarding the boundaries of questioning methods used in courtrooms and the possible consequences of personal assaults on witnesses. Some contend that although these tactics are legitimate, may eventually compromise the integrity of the legal system by putting more emphasis on feelings than facts.